married on the same day as Sister D. But a second before getting into the sedan, she suggested a swap. The eldest Zhou son, Zhou Sheng, has always had you in his heart. In my last life, I stayed in an empty room for 50 years. You won't be mistreated if you marry him. Looking at her expectant eyes, I nodded in agreement. She didn't know that in the last life, the second Zhou son and I weren't happy either. When I was on my deathbed in old age, he held my hand and called out Sister D's name. Since we both chose wrong, changing it this life would be better for all four of us. So, Sister D and I happily swapped sedans. When it was completely dark that night, I finally heard someone enter the room. The tipsy man slowly lifted my red veil. My blushing face turned pale. The moment I saw that familiar face, then I heard from the other courtyard of the Zhou family. Sister D's breakdown and scream. How did you guys get mixed up too? Gazing at the handsome man before me, my heart was full of desolation. Zhou Qingyan. He was the husband who accompanied me for over 50 years in my past life. At this moment, he noticed my dismal expression. His eyes flickered as he stared at my face. After a moment, he curled his lips, having been forced to drink several cups of strong wine. Sorry to keep you waiting. His tone was soft. His lazy eyes were full of affection. In my previous life, I was infatuated by his looks. I really thought he was like me. Extremely satisfied with this marriage, I spent my life foolishly accompanying him, bragging to everyone that my husband couldn't live without me. He was so clingy, but on his deathbed, the name he called was not mine. When he whispered Pei Qing, those two words, I died of anger on the spot. I am Guan Hao, and my sister D, Zhou Qingyan's sister-in-law, is named Gu Tangzhao. Before I died, I heard my son exclaim beside me, father and mother truly have a deep bond. Even on the road to the underworld, they want to go together. How hateful. If I could live another life, I would never marry this hypocritical man again, or have his foolish children. I thought heaven had heard my prayer, so I happily swapped wedding dresses with Sister D. But what is going on now? We swapped, and they swapped too? Copycats. The remaining half of the red silk covered my face. I raised my hand and tore it off. Picking up my long skirt, I ran outside. No, while it's late and no one has noticed, I have to quickly swap back with Sister D. But before I could take a few steps, my wrist was grabbed. Looking back, Zhou Qingyan's smile was cold. On our wedding night, where do you think you're going? I had seen this kind of smile from Zhou Qingyan once. It was the year after we married in my past life. An old childhood friend of mine passed through the capital, and came specifically to catch up with me. Zhou Qingyan smiled just like this then, and made it so I couldn't get out of bed for 3 days. My back went cold, but I still forced a smile at him. I'm going to check on Sister D. She screamed so miserably just now. My feet left the ground. That familiar scent surrounded me. Zhou Qingyan carried me and threw me back onto the bed. That proves my brother is already spending a lovely night with his wife. We need to hurry too. My face flushed red. I pushed him away, my eyes wide with terror. No, no. If we really sleep together, we can never swap back. I used all my strength to push him away. The man's hair was a bit messy. He sat on the edge of the bed with his bright red wedding robe open, like a male demon. Swapping sedans, swapping clothes. Did you think no one would notice? My arms were pinned behind my back. Seeing me struggle so hard, Zhou Qingyan simply laid his cards on the table. Guan Hao, you want to marry my brother? I felt like I was being watched by a snake. Zhou Qingyan seemed angry to the extreme. He pinched my face and leaned in to take a bite. The pain cleared my mind. I instantly raised my foot and kicked him in his vitals. Zhou Qingyan reacted very quickly. He rolled to one side but didn't forget to grip my wrist tightly, fearing I would escape. Unfortunately, my brother met your sister before the wedding. He recognizes her figure and appearance. I don't know what trickery you sisters are playing, but you should have at least asked me about swapping brides. My vision went dark. So the problem was with the eldest Zhou son, Zhou Sheng. Zhou Qingyan and I had never met before the wedding, but the eldest Zhou son had visited my father to discuss scholarship, and had seen us sisters a few times. But didn't Sister D say the person he loved was me? Seeing we had swapped, shouldn't he have just gone along with it? I couldn't figure it out. Wait, Zhou Qingyan, you're unbuttoning my dress. My words of protest were stuck in my throat. I wanted to cry but had no tears. Zhou Qingyan's hand moved down, and I pressed it down with all my might. I'm on my period. Zhou Qingyan narrowed his eyes at me. His gaze darkened. The air around us seemed to get even colder. After a long time, he let me go. I busied myself tidying my clothes. Zhou Qingyan's voice was slightly hoarse. Fine. Then I'll wait until your period is over. During the night, I tried to sneak out several times. But before I could even get out of bed, I was pulled back. Though the night passed without incident, Zhou Qingyan held me very tightly. It wasn't until the next morning when I went to serve tea to old Mrs. Zhou that I saw Sister D again. She looked terrible. Her eyes were bloodshot. Red marks were faintly visible on her neck and shoulders. Her face was also incredibly pale. The eldest Zhou son, Zhou Sheng, pursed his lips tightly. He reached out to support her, but was violently pushed away by Sister D. Old Mrs. Zhou had always been in poor health. After handling the weddings of her 2 sons yesterday, she was so tired she hadn't even gotten up yet. The old madam is unwell. Please come back another day to visit. On the way back, I secretly observed Zhou Xing and Sister D. The atmosphere between them was extremely strange. In the past life, Sister D was always unhappy. Her brows were always full of sorrow. She was always submissive towards her husband. But today, she was like a little bird that had won a battle. Her head was held high. Though her condition was poor, her spirit was actually quite good. Beside her, Zhou Xing surprised me even more. In my memory, my brother-in-law was stern. He always had a stiff face. Zhou Qingyan was born to Mr. Zhou's concubine, and later adopted by old Mrs. Zhou. He inherited his mother's features, deep and handsome, while Zhou Xing looked more like old Mrs. Zhou. His features were harsh and intimidating. But this morning, he was like a child who had done something wrong. Closely following behind Sister D. Seeing we were about to part, I finally couldn't hold it back. I called out to Sister D. I pulled her to a corner, biting my lip. Looking at her neck, I didn't know how to start. Sister D spoke first. Zhou Xing, that dog. Last night, he used the excuse of drinking 2 jars of wine to pretend I was you. He tormented me all night. My face turned beet red. My sister really has lived another life. Her personality has completely changed. She says everything out loud now. Then what should we do? I fiddled with the corner of my clothes. I lied to Zhou Qingyan last night, so he didn't touch me. Are we still going to do what we did in the past life? Unlike yesterday when our faces were covered by red veils. Today, all the servants in the manor have seen our faces. Swapping back privately is impossible now. Moreover, Sister D had already, with Zhou Xing. Sister D gritted her teeth, her eyes burned with a raging fire. There's no hope of swapping back. But the Zhou Manor isn't the only place with men in this world. I gasped. I'm not willing to waste my life again. Just you wait. I have my own ways. She wiped the red marks on her neck. Her eyes red with anger. You protect your purity. In the future, you might still find a good match. Even if I can't stay at home, I won't stay in the Zhou Manor. I looked at this completely unfamiliar Sister D. And nodded. Sister D wanted to say a few more words of advice. But subtle footsteps came from behind. Turning around, I saw Zhou Xing. When our gazes met, he gave me a deep look. Then he looked at Sister D. Tang Zhao, aren't you feeling unwell? Go back to the courtyard first. Before he could finish, Sister D didn't even look at him. She turned and left. Zhou Xing hurriedly followed her. I stared at their departing backs. I always felt something wasn't quite right. As my brother-in-law, Zhou Xing and I didn't have much interaction in the past life. I did notice a few times that his gaze would occasionally fall on me. But that look really couldn't be called admiration. Could it be that because Zhou Qingyan looked at me with glowing eyes every time, like a wolf seeing meat, that I thought all Zhou men were like that? But now his eyes are full of stars for her. His reactions are frequent. Seen enough? A cold voice sounded in my ear. I was startled. When I turned around, I realized Zhou Qingyan had been standing behind me for who knows how long. We were very close. Yet I hadn't noticed at all. Perhaps subconsciously, I still viewed him as my most trusted person. No wonder you wanted to swap brides. Your eyes are almost glued to my brother. Zhou Qingyan didn't even smile when he said this. He was expressionless. But there was an uncontrollable intensity in his eyes. Listening to him, accusing me of what he was doing himself, I almost couldn't resist rolling my eyes. He's the one, right? Seeing the red marks on Sister D's neck, his heart is probably breaking. I didn't bother responding to him. I walked while thinking about Sister D's words. To be fair, I really did live a fulfilling life in the past. At least I was satisfied until the day I died. But as Sister D said, heaven gave us a chance to start over. It must be out of pity that we were deceived by unfaithful men for a lifetime. I clenched my fists. I secretly made up my mind to listen to Sister D. Even if a second marriage brings a bad reputation, I won't marry into the Zhou family again. Zhou Qingyan got into bed early. I huddled in the corner, watching him guardedly. My period isn't over yet. He lazily raised his eyelids to look at me. He gave a cold snort from his nose. He reached out and pulled out a small book. When I saw the drawings in that booklet, my face instantly turned red. Are you sick? Why are you looking at that? That erotic book was at the bottom of my trunk when I got married. I don't know how he found it. If I don't study it, do you expect to study it? Saying this, Zhou Qingyan flipped a page in the booklet. If you want to learn, wait until your period ends. I always felt he was threatening me, but my face was burning fiercely. Sister D didn't come to see me for 2 days. I was a bit anxious. So while Zhou Qingyan was still eating, I headed towards Sister D's courtyard. Zhou Xing was the eldest son. His residence was naturally more spacious than ours. Before I even got close, I heard people arguing in the courtyard. I didn't dare go further in, so I stood at the corner to eavesdrop. Sister D's voice sounded tearful, but firm. You were drunk the day before yesterday. What about yesterday? Zhou Xing, aren't you disgusted by yourself? The eldest brother's voice was very low. I had to get closer to hear clearly. I stood on my tiptoes on some stones to get a bit closer. You are my legally wedded wife. Even if I don't drink, you still have to fulfill your duties as a wife. A crisp slapping sound rang out. I became even more curious. I stepped on some bricks and tried my best to look inside. Finally, I saw clearly. The maids in the courtyard had all been dismissed. The two were standing by the flower bushes, their faces red from arguing. There was a palm print on Zhou Xing's face, but he didn't move an inch. Sister D's voice was trembling. But you've already admitted it yourself, you've also been reborn. This was clearly your chance to marry your beloved. Why do you continue to humiliate me? If you had just pretended not to know, I could have married, I gasped. The eldest Zhou son is also reborn? Right after. I saw him pull Sister D into his arms. Zhou Xing used one large hand to pin both of Sister D's wrists. He held them behind her back. He used his lips to silence Sister D's words. My cheeks flushed red. Just as I was about to jump down, I realized I was being lifted up. I almost screamed in shock. A familiar hand gently covered my cheek. Zhou Qingyan's voice carried a hint of amusement. This was, since we got married, the first time he smiled from the heart. Why did you come to watch others? If you want a kiss, I'll teach you. He carried me on his shoulder towards our courtyard. I struggled the whole way. I'm on my period. I was thrown onto the bed, clutching my stomach in fear. Zhou Qingyan's smile was charming. It almost dazzled my eyes. The book says you can even when you're on your period. I scrambled to crawl to the inner side of the bed. But I was caught by the ankle and pulled back, until I was slumped in Zhou Qingyan's arms. I couldn't understand how the situation had evolved into this. When Sister D came to find me the next day, she stared at my swollen lips and remained silent for a long time. You lost your purity too? My face was so red it could bleed. I kept shaking my head. It's basically the same thing anyway. Zhou Qingyan is just as annoying as in the past life. He has so many tricks, I almost suspected he was reborn too. But he insisted he learned them from the picture book. Today we return home. I planned to tell father that I want a divorce. Sister D's words shocked me. Sister D looked at my lips. She gave a light laugh. You decide for yourself. I remember in the past life, the second son was also this greedy for you. In my past life, the only time I met Zhou Xing was also after the wedding. Her eyes dimmed. I went silent too. On the road back to the city, my mind was a mess. From time to time, I would lift the curtain to look at Sister D's sedan. She was traveling far ahead. It was unusually quiet. Zhou Qingyan leaned over again to nibble on me. I irritably pushed his face away. Can't you just stop for a bit? I get annoyed just looking at him like this. The current Zhou Qingyan clearly isn't interested in Sister D yet. I don't know in the past life, which year after the wedding he started noticing her. Sister D's words were still ringing in my ears. Inheo. Think it through for yourself. I'm definitely going to divorce. Because Zhou Xing admitted it himself in our past life. That from the very beginning, the one he wanted to marry was you. Perhaps if I leave the Zhou family, all the difficulties will be resolved. No, I refuted in my heart. Even if Sister D was gone, Gu Tangzhao could still be replaced by someone else. In the past life, those two words Zhou Qingyan said before he died are the thorns in my heart. Divorce? It's only been a few days. Father smashed his teacup. Except for me, no one seemed to expect Sister D to pull such a stunt. Sister D knelt in the center. Her expression was firm. Her eyelashes were lowered. Beside her, Zhou Xing's face turned pale. This was the first time I'd seen my brother-in-law's expression look so terrible. In my impression, he was always very busy. He was away from home all year round. Unlike Zhou Qingyan, he seemed to never have any expression. He looked like everything was always under control. This was the first time I'd seen him look panicked. My heart was in a mess. From the corner of my eye, I saw a faint trace of a smile on Zhou Qingyan's lips. I completely steeled my heart. Father, I want a divorce too. I knelt with a thud beside Sister D. I didn't miss the way Zhou Qingyan's smile instantly froze. The air was terrifyingly silent. Mother was the first to react. She hurried to pull Sister D up. Tangzhao, what kind of nonsense are you talking? Looking up at father, who still hadn't recovered. Father, I want a divorce. I swallowed hard. I clenched my skirt tightly. Sister D knelt straight as a rod. But I only dared to lower my head and echo softly. Father. Before I could finish my sentence, father finally woke up. His face was as ashen as dirt. Nonsense. Zhou Xing pursed his lips and stepped forward, trying to pull Sister D up. Don't touch me. His arm was violently thrown off. Sister D's eyes were full of disgust. I was also a bit stunned. I still remember in the past life. Sister D sat in the wedding sedan with a blushing face, her eyes full of starlight, but as time went by, the deep courtyards of the Zhou family seemed to slowly drain the life out of her. That innocent and romantic and loving Sister D was like a flower, without nutrients, withered and broken. I wasn't happy when I married Zhou Qingyan. Unlike Sister D, who had already given her heart to someone, my marriage with Zhou Qingyan was more like a transaction. I was originally the daughter of a concubine. My mother was Sister D's mother's personal maid. She died early. I was adopted over early on. Mother announced to the outside world that Sister D and I were biological sisters. Our food, clothing, and housing were all the same. Sister D really did treat me very well. That's why I know my mother told me more than once. When Tangzhou gets married, you will follow her. If the family has many brothers, mother will find a good match for you. If there's only one, you will go as a concubine. I knew since I was a child that my mother was her maid. So in her heart, I was also Sister D's maid. Even my name was changed to Inheo. She warned me at all times to remember the kindness of Sister D and the madam. I didn't want to marry Zhou Qingyan. I was even grateful, because while Sister D withered day by day in the Zhou family, I was pampered by Zhou Qingyan for a lifetime. If not for the words Zhou Qingyan said before he died, I think my 50+ years in the Zhou family were the most beautiful times of my last life, and even this one. Like Zhou Sheng, I had seen Sister D's eyes full of deep affection, and later her heart turning to ash. But I had never seen such a look of disgust from her. I vaguely realized something. I was startled by the first angry roar. What are you still standing there for? Do you think this is a joke? When the Zhou family came to propose, you were the one who agreed. It's only been a few days. Can you afford to lose this face? The Gu family cannot. Sister D's back was straight. Her eyes looked directly at father. Clearly you heard wrong. The eldest Zhou son said he wanted to marry the Gu family's legitimate daughter. Is there only one legitimate daughter in the Gu family? My face turned pale. I looked up and met my mother's dark gaze. Sister D turned her gaze back to Zhou Sheng. The first time, you were deceived too. If you married me against your will, I'd accept the misfortune. But what about this time? Zhou Sheng, you cannot and do not deserve to humiliate me for 2 lifetimes. Only the 3 of us understood these words. Zhou, his upper lip twitched. He seemed burned by the naked disgust in Sister D's eyes. He couldn't utter a single word. What nonsense are you talking? Father always cared about face. He didn't say another word. He picked up a bench leg from the side and swung it at Sister D's back. Married for 3 days and now causing a divorce. I'll beat you 2 disgraceful, rebellious daughters to death. Mother grabbed Sister D. Anxious, she spoke even faster. Tangzhou, quickly apologize to your father. Sister D had already stood up. The wooden stick swung straight at me, without missing a beat. I squeezed my eyes shut, lowered my head, and didn't even try to dodge. I didn't deserve to dodge, because without mother's protection, it would only make father more furious. A muffled grunt echoed. I looked directly at Zhou Qingyan. His shoulder was slightly hunched from the blow, and his face had gone a bit pale. Second brother. Father clumsily dropped the stick in his hand. His arrogant fire mostly extinguished. Yue Zhao, it was my fault. He didn't look at me, but stood firm, his head bowed. He raised a hand to gently rub his left shoulder. I'm fine. Hurry back now. I will surely coax her well. Sister, don't hold it against him. Zhou Qingyan turned around, his expression indifferent, and reached out to hold my hand. I looked at my gloomy-faced father, and my mother, who looked despondent, and finally, with trembling hands, placed mine into Zhou Qingyan's palm. Zhou Qingyan's palm, warm behind me. I had held this hand my entire life. At this moment, I sorrowfully realized that in this courtyard, he was the only one I could rely on and trust. Daich was still stubbornly arguing with our father. I hung my head, and we hadn't even finished the day. Father chased us all out to isolate us. Unless I draw my last breath, don't even think about bringing me shame. He left those words, not even glancing at us. Mother looked as dead as ashes. Zhou Sheng followed silently behind her. When getting into the carriage, he reached out to help her, but she shoved him away with a cold face. A hand reached out to me. Zhou Qingyan still kept his eyes down, lost in thought. I bit my lip. I still grasped his wrist to help me climb into the cabin. The carriage slowly drove toward the Zhou residence. Neither of us spoke. When we were nearly at the Zhou mansion, Zhou Qingyan suddenly spoke. Forget him, think of me instead. I looked up and noticed his face was a bit pale. Sister-in-law said, Big brother. The one he truly likes is you. I didn't know what to say. I turned my head to look out the window, but my face was turned back by someone. Zhou Qingyan's gaze was deep. So that is it. Am I the one breaking up a pair of lovebirds? I get annoyed whenever I see him. My head was a complete mess. I didn't understand how things had evolved into this. If it weren't for your acting. My mouth was bitten by him. I was dumbstruck. Zhou Qingyan stared at my bruised lip. What now? Finally, some color returned to his face. Fine, I don't care to hear it anyway. He grabbed the back of my head, saying if I've snatched you, you're mine. Catching me off guard, he bit me again. Now his own lips were stained with red. From now on, you are not allowed to go to Big Brother's place. Otherwise. I blushed in shame, reaching out to push him away. Are you sick? Are you a dog? He let out a low growl. Thinking of Zhou Qingyan, his face went even paler. I stared blankly at his shoulder, only then remembering father was a martial man. He probably didn't hold back at all when hitting him. I quickly reached out to pull at his clothes. Why does it look like there's blood coming through? My wrist was seized. A hint of a smile finally returned to Zhou Qingyan's face. Heartbroken for me? I pulled my hand back. You can still tease me? I suppose it's nothing serious. In your dreams, I'd only feel heartache. Before I could finish my sentence, I was bitten on the mouth again. You always say things I don't want to hear. Zhou Qingyan's smile faded slightly, and he leaned back lazily. But I'm being serious. Even if you clarify things with my brother, life won't be easy for you. I stared at him strangely. How would you know? Zhou Qingyan's mouth curled up slightly. My brother is thick-headed, and you are too. A minor quarrel and you'd break up. I rolled my eyes, right. Unlike you, a mouth. A very good one at biting people. Zhou Qingyan's smile deepened. I can do other things too. I looked at him, the man's smile reaching the bottom of his heart. Just learned it from a picture book. Tell me when your monthly cycle is over. I'm not some little girl who doesn't know about intimate matters. In my previous life, how dissolute Zhou Qingyan was. I knew better than anyone. Get lost. I kicked him. Zhou Qingyan laughed even louder. The carriage stopped without me noticing. I was still pinching Zhou Qingyan's arm, when I suddenly bumped into Daiji's envious eyes. I am very familiar with this look. In my past life, she looked at me like this more than once. But this time, it was mixed with emotions I couldn't read. Daiji looked away, walking directly from the carriage toward the courtyard she shared with Zhou Sheng. Behind her, Zhou Sheng followed with a tight jaw. How interesting. Really not afraid of me biting Zhou Qingyan to death? A voice drifted by. I instinctively covered my mouth. He curled his lips. If you're afraid, stop looking around so much. At night, I lay on the bed, my mouth painfully swollen. Zhou Qingyan, breathing heavily, entangled with me again. I irritably pushed him away. Do you really know nothing? His brows furrowed. What should I know? Just now, when he kissed the red mole under my collarbone. The surprise in Zhou Qingyan's eyes didn't look faked. It was the same as our wedding night in the previous life. He was, toward me, extraordinarily surprised by the plum-shaped mole on my chest. Zhou Qingyan wasn't reborn. I turned over, unable to figure out why the three of us were reborn. But she wasn't. Zhou Qingyan pulled me back into his arms. Are you thinking about my brother again? I was about to be seen through by him. So I simply stopped speaking. Zhou Qingyan's hand kept tracing my waist, pressed against that familiar chest. Sleepiness soon overtook me. In my dreams, I suddenly remembered when I was 8. Mother took me and my sister into the mountains. A bald Chan master beside the Buddha was solving troubles for others. I didn't record much at the time, but one sentence I remember clearly: those who harbor regret often have deep resentment. I sat up in pain. Daiji regretted marrying Zhou Sheng, so her resentment was immense. Zhou Sheng, regardless of who it was, his resentment was also not shallow. I was literally angered to death by Zhou Qingyan. I wanted to pin him down and beat him at the mansion. My resentment was also naturally profound. But Zhou Qingyan. I turned back to look at him, the man half propped on his head, lazily raising his eyelids to look at me. That gaze held an inseparable joy and doting love. I have looked at this gaze for a lifetime. He has no remorse? My brows furrowed even deeper. Could it be that the one he dotes on isn't Daiji, but someone else? Kept a mistress outside. Named something like Qin Qin? Zhou Qingyan. Is there a woman named Qin Qin by your side? He lazily raised his eyelids to look at me. None. He answered flatly. After 50 years together, I could tell at a glance he wasn't lying. In my previous life, I never saw him have dealings with Daiji either. Thinking this way, it was likely he kept a private lover after marriage. The more I pondered, the more it seemed like it. I turned my back and felt even more wretched. Zhou Qingyan reached out to pull me. Why are you pouting again? I ignored him. Just looking at his unsatisfied expression made me want to act out. Daiji and Zhou Sheng started arguing again. Only this time, before Daiji could cause a scene before the Zhou matriarch, she was carried back to their quarters by Zhou Sheng. Daiji was like an agitated wildcat, kicking wildly at Zhou Sheng. She not only clawed bloody marks onto his neck, but on his face too. But the man seemed to feel no pain, just quickening his pace as he passed us. Compared to how they interacted in my past life, I withdrew my gaze. It seems the cause for his lifelong remorse didn't lie with me, but with Daiji. But late compensation. Not everyone can accept it. The next day, Daiji visited my courtyard. I realized there were more red marks near her collar. Compared to the near madness of the past few days, she was much calmer. These past few days, I have thought through many things. Her tone was indifferent. Zhou Sheng told me the reason we switched was because he regretted it on his deathbed in the previous life. He wants to live a good life with me this time. I opened my mouth, not knowing what to say. I pondered all night yesterday. In the previous life, he treated me coldly for over 50 years, forcibly taking my purity, yet claimed it was because he loved me deeply. Daiji's eyes were clearly weary, yet her lips formed a mocking curve. How could he be so arrogant? I pinched my fingers, at a loss for words. Daiji suddenly held my hand. I plan to go to Jiangnan. Will you come with me? Will you come with me? Daiji laughed. I sat on the edge of the bed, my heart beating fast. Her words seemed to still vibrate in my ears. Father doesn't approve, right? That's because he isn't the one suffering. He doesn't worry for me. Why should I care about his face? I felt like Daiji was a woman reborn through fire. The gentle and melancholy woman from my past life. totally perished at the Zhou residence. Living again, it seems. Everyone has changed. I stared blankly out the window, lost in thought. Daij. Zhou Sheng, both were choosing paths vastly different from the past. A servant girl called out from outside. I leaned out to see her blushing cheeks. A young master has arrived at the gate. Claiming to be an old acquaintance of yours. My brow locked tight. I have no friends. If I must mention one, it would be the little novice from Mingluan Mountain during childhood. Looking at the man standing at the door with a gentle smile, I exhaled a long breath. It really is him. Mingchen. After my aunt passed away, I was casually tossed into Mingluan Mountain's temple. My only companion. In my past life, he had also sought me out. Back then, he still had a shaved head, wearing monk's robes. I looked at the person before me in a daze. Why have you grown out your hair? His eyes were shining, staring at me without blinking. I have returned to secular life. The first thing I did after leaving the mountain was to come see you. Your servant said you were married here. The light in his eyes dimmed a bit. Does he treat you well? We stood not too far, not too close. My eyelids jumped wildly. I realized everything had gone haywire. In my past life, when Mingchen found me, it was years later. He was passing through the capital and stopped to check on me. But why is he seeking me out deliberately this time? Mingchen waved his hand in front of my eyes. I snapped back to reality. This is my long-forgotten childhood companion. It's quite good. Ever since my aunt fell ill and passed away, no one has addressed me like that. His smile held a trace of bitterness. As soon as I woke up, I traveled day and night down the mountain. In the end, I was late. I didn't hear him clearly. I looked up and asked, "What did you say?" He waved his hand, pulling a string of Buddhist beads from his bamboo bag. "If it's good, then fine. I'm planning to go to Jiangnan to make a living. If he treats you poorly, I'll be waiting in Jiangnan," the last words he said, leaning closer. The voice was faint and barely audible, but I heard it clearly. I widened my eyes, instinctively wanting to push him away, and looked up, only to see Zhou Qingyan nearby with an inscrutable expression. He didn't know how long he had been observing. My heart sank. Zhou Qingyan seemed to be angry, yet also seemed not to be. Before falling asleep, he was still entangled, biting me, as if my lips had sugar on them. But tonight, after kissing me, he rolled off the bed, went to the daybed, and slept with his back to me. I bit my lip and lay on my side. In the past life, Mingchen only passed by and said a few words to me. That night, he had smiled and stayed with me all night. In this life, we haven't consummated our marriage. We haven't known each other long, and our bond isn't deep. I figured he wouldn't mind too much. But in the hazy middle of the night, I felt a dense, pricking pain. I sleepily opened my eyes, to find a furry head hovering over me. I sat up straight. Zhou Qingyan's expression was shockingly gloomy, with a glistening sheen hanging from his lips, from his saliva. I realized too late. From my cheeks to my neck, and spreading to my chest and waist, everything was stinging. Looking down, I felt like the world was crumbling. "Zhou Qingyan, did you also choose to reincarnate?" My body was covered in dense, interlaced tooth marks. "Taking precautions against Big Brother stealing you away. You turn around and have a secret meeting with a monk." Zhou Qingyan raised a hand to stroke my face, his teeth almost grinding to dust. "If I were really a beast, the first thing I'd do is bite you to death, you heartless woman." I picked up the bronze mirror, my eyes red with rage. How can I face anyone like this? Zhou Qingyan still acted like a bloodsucker, gnawing at my neck, mumbling in his mouth, "Bite you to death, bite you to death." I slapped him away. "I'm sick of this, sick of this." He himself will keep someone outside later on. Yet he makes a scene just because I talked to someone. After this long night, neither I nor Zhou Qingyan slept well. He was simmering with anger, and I was the same. He was angry I pushed him away for a monk, and I was angry about that mysterious Qin and Daij. Daij went missing. Zhou Sheng rushed into my courtyard in a panic, seeing the bite marks on my face and neck. He first paused in astonishment, then his expression turned slightly melancholy. "Do you know where your sister went? She vanished in the blink of an eye this morning." I had never seen Zhou Sheng like this, so flustered. After all, he was always a steady and composed man. Even in my past life, when Daij said he longed for me his whole life, he never stepped into my and Zhou Qingyan's residence. He had such self-restraint. Yet at this moment, Daij's disappearance threw him into chaos. I shook my head, maybe she just left to handle some errands. He rushed out again to search. It wasn't until noon that Daij returned. She really had just gone to buy things. At the mansion gates, Zhou Sheng hugged her tightly, his lips pale, but Daij just pushed him away calmly, and entered my courtyard. She spread out the silver she had bought, setting it before me. "This belongs to you. Keep it safe." I gripped the silver, my heart surging. "I thought you left me and ran off." Daij's hand paused slightly, and when she looked up, her expression was as cold as frost. To think I would just walk away like that? For him, that would be too light a punishment. I swallowed. "Daij. That's scary." At night, Zhou Qingyan returned, his expression as usual, as he trimmed the candle wick. He asked me, "Big Brother came to the courtyard today?" I replied with a sound. He turned around and looked at the faint bite marks on my cheek, his eyes crinkling with a smile. He was already disheartened when he left. What was he wildly speculating about again? I felt Zhou Qingyan was truly something else. Whether in the past life or this one. In his eyes, everyone seemed to have designs on me. I remember when I wasn't long pregnant with Yuzi. The physician at the mansion asked to resign. Zhou Qingyan was vomiting so severely that I accompanied him out of the mansion to see a doctor. That physician was indeed young. Is this soup for you or him? I was blushing so hard. I also didn't know how to explain it. I am the one pregnant. Why was he suffering from such morning sickness? Yet I was perfectly fine. The young man's gaze lingered on my face for a long time, before saying, this complexion is indeed very rosy. Keep it up. Go back now. Zhou Qingyan then threw a fit at me, insisting that the physician was eyeing my beauty. Ever since I became pregnant, he not only had morning sickness but was also anxious and depressed. I always had to soothe the teary-eyed one while carrying a large belly. He was daydreaming again. Let me guess, are you thinking about my big brother right now? Or that childhood sweetheart of yours? Small monk? His cheeks were pinched. Zhou Qingyan's smile vanished again. I shook off his arm, not wanting to deal with him, and picked up the ointment to apply on my face. I needed to clear these marks off quickly. What is this? Zhou Qingyan stood behind me, his expression a mix of light and shadow. Daij was scheduled to leave at the end of the month, but ever since the last time she vanished without a reason, it scared Zhou Sheng so much that, for several days straight, she couldn't even step out of the courtyard gate, and because of the bite marks on my face, I hadn't been out for days. Occasionally, I could still hear the passing maids whispering. The eldest young master and his wife are truly more and more affectionate. I hung my head, staring at the silver under the bed. I didn't know if Daij was wavering. Tonight, Zhou Qingyan was a bit strange. He returned drunk. Rarely, I wasn't pestered by him. I stared at his handsome face, lost in thought. In my past life, despite all the affection he showed me, he still kept another's name in his heart. In the end, I couldn't pull that thorn out. So I quietly crept forward, staring at his clear neck. A scheme formed in my mind. I rummaged through the boxes to find some rouge. Looking into the mirror, I applied it to my lips. I never wore rouge. The substance was viscous, like it had a layer of oil, making it impossible for me to eat properly. But now I had to frame him. I stood by the bedside, contemplating Zhou Qingyan for a long time, feeling my heart turn sour, before I slowly leaned down. Last time I lied and said my monthly cycle wasn't over yet. The way Zhou Qingyan looked at me was already not right. These past few days, I could clearly feel his hands moving downward every time. Before I decided whether to follow Daij to Jiangnan, I absolutely would not let him touch me. I planned to reverse the blame tomorrow morning, claiming he had gone to a brothel and picked up something dirty, so I could avoid him for a while out of anger. But just as my lips touched his neck, a clear sound of swallowing came to my ears. I suddenly looked up, only to find Zhou Qingyan's eyes were clear, a pair of dark and deep pupils. The next moment, I was pinned on the bedding. Zhou Qingyan's hand gently wiped the red rouge from my lips, his eyes full of malice, very sweet. His hand slowly slid down. Terrified, the next day the sun was bright. I sat by the bedside, on the verge of tears. I was so tired last night. Wife, you truly have a strong constitution. To still be able to get up and wash. Unlike me, I was so fed up I slapped him across the face. Zhou Qingyan lay flat on the bed, laughing comfortably. He had returned to his clingy past life self. Even when I was talking to Daij, he had to look at the marks on my neck while busy. Daij's gaze darkened. I plan to leave tomorrow night. Wu Minchun. Daij smiled at me. Live your life well with second brother. He truly cherishes you from the bottom of his heart. Daij gazed at me. Do you know? In the previous life, I was very jealous of you. Second brother practically spoiled you to the heavens. So on the day of rebirth, I selfishly wanted to make him my husband. I originally thought that this way I could also grow old with my husband in love. My eyes reddened, and I took out the money I had saved from under the bed. Sister, be careful on your journey. My things were few, and the same went for her luggage. So Daij packed 2 big bags, while I only had one small one. She and I were always unequal. She was raised pampered by mother, while I was fighting with monks in a cold temple. Children who grow up in love often can better recognize what love is. Unlike me, I couldn't bear to let go of even the tiniest bit of kindness. Keep it yourself. Daij pushed the silver back to me. If second brother treats you poorly in the future, consider it travel money to come find me. Tears dripped onto the silver ingot. I also feel I am very cowardly, knowing that Zhou Qingyan will have someone else in the future. But I still craved the tenderness he gave me. I had never possessed so much favoritism before. I deceived myself into thinking everything had been reversed. Perhaps Zhou Qingyan's fate would change too. On the day the neighboring residence caught fire, Zhou Qingyan was still rubbing the bruises on my waist. I rushed out of the small courtyard, staring in shock at the rolling thick smoke. Daij's words seemed to still be circling in my ears. She wanted to just walk away like this, feeling quite apologetic toward him. She set a fire to burn down the prison that had locked her for half her life, along with the man in that courtyard. When Zhou Sheng was carried out, half his face was already unrecognizable. Yet he still clutched his servant's hand tightly, trying to rush back into the flames. Wang Qian is still inside, I have to find him. I watched his panicked, broken appearance, and shook my head with a sigh. Zhou Qingyan stood behind me, the corner of his mouth slightly curled, seeming to be in a very good mood. Back in the courtyard, he could no longer hold back, tugging at me and pestering me until midnight, laughing as he moved. I really couldn't take it anymore. This impulsive man. What exactly are you laughing at? Get lost. Zhou Qingyan leaned down, his hot breath lingering against my neck, laughing until his chest shook. My brother is disfigured. Not as handsome as me. I grumbled. Zhou Sheng was never as handsome as you anyway. He was the rugged, masculine type. And you are the charming, refined type. The smile in Zhou Qingyan's eyes faded significantly. He's not even the rugged type anymore. Now he's the disfigured, twisted type. I couldn't be bothered with him. What this person is thinking in his brain, I have always been clueless about. My father came to the Zhou residence personally to apologize. His temples seemed to have turned much whiter, with half of Zhou Sheng's body burned. The Zhou family matriarch stepped out to host him. Did Daiji's actions implicate you in any way? I didn't expect him to come see me. The whole capital is spreading rumors that the Zhou family's head wife was a monster, who fled after setting fire to the mansion. Zhou Qingyan has protected me extremely well. I told him the truth, that Zhou Sheng wouldn't blame me for Daiji's actions. Even if the Zhou matriarch wanted to interfere, Zhou Qingyan would block it all. That is good. The Zhou family's second son knows how to cherish his wife. Father sighed and turned to walk away, his voice drifting softly into my ears. If he ever treats you poorly, come back and tell me. I have prepared a way out for you. I shuddered all over. Looking up, father's back seemed so much more hunched than before. Daij had ultimately used her own blood to forcefully pave a retreat for me. No one expected that. The first thing Zhou Sheng would do upon waking was head south to Jiangnan. Some say he went for revenge. Others say he wanted to drag Daij back to the Yan family for punishment. But before he left, he came to my courtyard. The man was covered tightly from head to toe, with only his eyes exposed. He reached out and handed me a jade pendant. In both lifetimes, I never properly repaid you. I am truly ashamed. This jade is yours. I stared at the pendant in a daze, then looked up at him. This is Daij's personal jade. His lips trembled slightly, as if he couldn't believe it. By the lotus pond when you were 10, didn't you say your name was Inheo? I thought he was a bit confused. That must have been Daij up to her old tricks again, trying to push her mistakes onto me. She always loved doing that. After all, every 2 months I was sent to the temple to offer incense for the concubine. Father never managed to catch me. Zhou Sheng left. I watched his back and shook my head. Daij. The flames of her revenge seemed to burn before my eyes again. This whole thing had finally been reversed. Because not only was Zhou Qingyan vomiting severely, I was throwing up too. We were a pair of nauseous wrecks. He even had to pat my back to soothe me while he was vomiting himself. Hell, just thinking about that silly cannon fodder son from my past life. I didn't even want to give birth anymore. Seeing Zhou Qingyan, I became even more annoyed. My morning sickness was all caused by him. That's fine. I trusted him fully, he just slept and ate all day. But about this, I was always worried he would sneak out to cheat while I was pregnant. Even though I knew it was unlikely. Because he was throwing up all day, his lips were deathly pale. But I just couldn't settle my mind. Because of this, I kicked him again. Zhou Qingyan was helping me deal with my sickness, and was caught off guard by my kick, letting out a low groan, his head hitting the stone edge on the side. I was stunned, struggling with my belly to go help him up. Are you okay? He studied me for a long time, then suddenly reached out and pulled me into his embrace. I am fine. The heavens heard my prayers, and let me continue our fated bond. Learning that Zhou Qingyan had also been reborn, I angrily rolled up my sleeves, pinched his ear and asked, who is Qingqing? Zhou Qingyan looked dazed. What are you talking about? My eyes turned red with anger again. In the past life, I was so angered by your little sweetheart, that I died because of it, and you're still pretending? That name you called out before you died. He blinked his eyes, his mouth twitching. That wasn't a name. That was a wish I made to the heavens, wishing for us to continue our love in the next life.